Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Pav, the Rising VTuber who hasn't quite spawned in the— oh no, there I am. Hello, I'm Pav, the Rising VTuber and an artist, and today we're going to be working on a thumbnail for Friday's stream. So I had a lot of fun working on this last time. So funny story about this one in particular. As you can see, I did actually have the sketch all laid out for this one, so we are ready to start the line art on it. But the problem is I saved the sketch file with nothing. I saved it as a solid PNG. So I ended up having to just grab the whole thing that I saved as a flat image. I mean, it's good that I saved it as a flat image though, because that way I can still. The good thing is I saved it at all. But yeah, we're gonna be working on it. The rope. You know what? I do think it's actually been a long time since I've actually had to draw any honest to god rope. Yeah, hey Michelle, how you doing? But yeah, I think I don't know. Rope is really cool. Funny story. So the couple of weeks before I went to university, this was back in like 2018. I was in a small town for something to do before actually getting into the university, before actually starting to board at the university, and I don't know what my mindset for this was. I went to this very cool looking old hardware store that was in the town that I was staying at. It was run by this really nice old man, like one of those like lifetime guys who opened a hardware store. You know, I don't know. He just had that air of like old guy competence about him. You know what I mean? Like if you go to any store and there's a guy working there who looks like he's 60 and he looks like he has the same aura as like the furniture of the store, that's how you know you're gonna get some real advice from that guy. Old guy confidence is so real. It is a thing. I'm telling you, it's absolutely a thing. Like this is a guy who's been probably working with those leveling planks and wood glue for longer than I've probably been alive. I trust his judgment. But yeah, this was also during the time when I carried duct tape around everywhere. So I was like, you know what? I should get myself some rope, some nice sturdy rope in case anything goes awry at my university. Like I was preparing to go into the fucking Resident Evil mansion. I was like, you know what? I need rope. That's that. Forget school supplies, forget textbooks, forget like sleeping, bedding material of any kind. What I need myself is some rope. So I did. I bought like a good length of what was it called? Like what's that plasticky stuff called? The never catching this rice locking not once. Yes, you got that right. I think there's only been a couple of times in my life where I've been like, oh my god, I am genuinely unprepared for this scenario. In all other circumstances, I either have something that I can use or I can like cobble something together. It's a very rewarding feeling. Although again, this was also the circumstance that led me to carry around a length of duct tape anywhere I want. So I don't, you take the good with the bad. The thing about being prepared is that you do have to lug everywhere with you forever, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, it creates routine. It ensures that you do have the materials that you need at the time you need them. But on the other hand, it's also like you do look a little bit silly carrying around a length of duct tape wherever you go. I guess this is all to say that the only reason that preparations are really meaningful is because they cost something to put together. Either your own patience and time, or in a lot of circumstances, actual material like money. Let's see, just along with. Let's make the rope closer to the foreground is the word that I'm thinking of. I was gonna say closer to the front. Which I guess is also technically correct. What am I doing to this anyway? Just, hang on. Thicken. There we go. Process whole line off. Perfect. There we go. The difference between thicken and scale up width is so funny to me. Because for thicken, I usually only use that for very specific circumstances when I'm drawing on a raster layer instead of a vector layer. So what that does is that it literally makes the line like 0.01, literally 0.1 of a pixel thicker. And that's really good for raster images because they're not as smart as vector layers. But for vector layers, it's not really helpful. Because hang on, like, okay, let's compare something real quick. So I'm going to draw the line on the left on the vector layer. And I'm going to draw the line on the line on the right on the raster layer. So if I use the thicken on the... And let's run on process the whole line for this one. If I use the thicken on the vector layer one, barely any difference. But if I use it on the raster layer, you can immediately see that it's just a little bit thicker where I began it. Like, it's very visible. It's much more notable. And like, how far can I take this? Oh my god. Actually, that's kind of cool. I don't know, I enjoy that. God, if I ever have to go back to using raster layer only technology, I might be cooked for real. Obviously, I'll learn to adapt eventually. Tsuchinoko line, that's right. Hi, Jupiter! God, the Tsuchinoko is such an awesome creature. Genuinely might be one of the top 5 mythological beasts of all time. Because a lot of the time for mythological beasts, it's something fearsome or ridiculous. Like, you remember the Bonnekin that we looked up that other time? The beast that shits itself to ward off predators? Like, that, everybody was taking the piss on that one, but everybody thinks that Tsuchinoko is cool. Literally some guy was like, what if there was a fat snake that loved alcohol? And everybody collectively nodded their heads like, yes. Probably cap that it exists, but I agree with the principle of the creature. It's cap, but I want to believe it. Okay, then over here. Perfect. I mean, I'm guessing that there are a lot of the... I am guessing that a lot of mythology does have fairly benign creatures. I do imagine that those make up the bulk of whatever's going on. It's just that the ones that are not benign are the ones that get the most attention, because those are probably the ones that are most featured. Because, like, let's be real, Tsuchinoko is very cute, but it's not exactly a compelling driving plot force like the same way a dragon might be. We've had enough Lamia woman. Where's our alcoholic Tsuchinoko woman? You are... Michelle, your mind is so beautiful. Your brain is... How do you not have more neck pain walking around with a brain that as huge as yours? You are a genius. You cracked it. You got it. That's exactly what we need. Let's see, okay, just connect, here we go. That doesn't seem right. That looks pretty rope-ish, rope-esque. I mean, I guess I could add a couple of lines here and there. I shouldn't get too caught up on the rope, just because it's not going to be like the most focal point of everything. You know what? I do wonder. I feel like it's been a hot minute since we've had like I feel like one of the anime archetypes used to be just random alcoholic woman just running around and being funny. I do wonder why that archetype has somewhat decreased in recent years. Maybe is it because of gacha games? I feel like it might be because of gacha games, because I feel like if you just have somebody who's like perpetually sloshed, that might ruffle some feathers at the App Store. But you know, I don't agree with creatively, but I feel like that's an understandable reason for why it might happen. I don't know. God, what if somebody... Now I'm just imagining somebody making a gacha unit that's based on the 3 weed-smoking girlfriends post. I don't even think that post is particularly funny. I still think it's legendary. Wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. That's how I feel about it as well. Listen, it's always morally correct to blame the advertisers. There we go. And sort of like that. Now I'm also remembering that one... I don't know how to call this genre other than like Farmsville slop or something like that. Okay, there are a very large number of games out on app stores that are about like having buildings producing stuff for you, and a lot of them introduce very predatory monetization mechanics. And there was one that was based on, or had characters based on, the Breaking Bad series. And like I remember that the Walter White clone was like, I'm still thinking about that legendary bud. How did they get away with that precisely? Did we burn our one shot for an alcoholic Tsuchinoko woman for that? Is that why we're not allowed to have nice things anymore? I feel like I'm hallucinating. There has to be a name for that. It's probably like City Builder or something like that, but it's not... You're not... I feel like it really is just a machine that turns your hard-earned money into... I don't know, maybe the world needs Weeder White. Used to play a weed-based one on Facebook back in the day. Yep. That's exactly what I'm thinking about. Yeah, it's like Facebook game slop. That's exactly what it is, because I remember playing a bunch of Facebook games that were exactly like that too. God, I remember my brother gave me access to his Facebook account just so I could play Pet Society. That was a good time. I'm the man who tow. God. Breaking Bad would have been like 2.5 seasons if Walter White had gone in on weed instead of methamphetamines. Heck, it probably even would have helped his cancer some. Wait, no. The fucking... Now I'm also remembering that Skylar crashed out on Jesse that one time because she thought he was selling Walter weed. I've only seen like 3 episodes of Breaking Bad. I don't intend to change that anytime soon. I'm not really a TV watcher kind of guy. But God, that isn't... that clip in particular lives rent-free in my head just because it spawned that one meme of the dude who, like, he makes a face like this. I was about to say we could fix this with On Disc Night. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The guy that makes the face with the... I'm Skylar White, yo. I feel like I'm getting his hair wrong. Nav Season 1 on DVD. Ooh. Fuck. One of my biggest regrets to this day is that I saw like a full box set of Columbo on sale at a Walmart one time. It was like $40 or something. And I was like, man, I don't got that much money on me right now. Maybe some other time. And I never went back to that Walmart. I don't think I've been back to that Walmart since that day, actually. Between you and me, I've only finished Better Call Saul. Don't worry, Jupiter. Your secret's safe with me. Also, I only now remember that rope is supposed to be, like, windy like this. So, we're gonna need to course correct a little bit here. Which is funny because I heard the show announce it was surely a lazy cash grab. Yeah, and now you have people who love Saul Goodman more than they love most of the characters on Breaking Bad. Nature can be beautiful sometimes. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I think from here on out, it could reasonably look like it's curled. Seen a few episodes of both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I liked what I saw. Haven't tapped in though. Tapped in fully, right? Yeah. You know, I got some episodes to watch back in high school, and I was like, oh wow, this is I can tell that this is really good television, but it's stressing me the fuck out. Don't I have homework to do? And then when I did my homework. Yeah. That is a funny idea. Intentionally giving yourself anxiety just so that you have to take care of administrative tasks. Because, you know, TV's so good it makes you do homework. That's how it was. Hi, Adept. No, because I am thinking about it, right? Imagine you've seen like a really emotionally devastating episode of television. You kind of just want to sit there and decompress. Isn't that kind of the perfect time to do something that's like mindful and requires your thought and requires you to be present at the moment, like homework? Or, you know, whatever things you do at your job? To be fair, I've done that before accidentally. Oh yeah? How did that go? God, I remember I was watching Devilman Crybaby when I was preparing for like my final exams in high school. And I got to like the last episodes and I'm like, you know what, maybe that's enough for today. Maybe you know, how's that how are my biology notes looking today? I feel like I should catch up on those. God. It is kind of awe-inspiring what the human brain can do under certain circumstances. Not necessarily good, but awe-inspiring. There we go. I got walked in on by somebody's mother watching Saru Devilman. Oh shit. Oh no. Well, I mean, there's good parts and bad parts to walk in on somebody watching Devilman. Not a whole lot of them, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of good parts for somebody to walk in on you watching Saru Devilman. But, you know, there's some. There's like maybe 2 or 3 scenes in an episode. It was not a good part. You have my deepest sympathies. Usually it's just too much of something or other. I'm like, oh, I should go do something productive or else I'm going to get too scared. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I still have a lot of like... I was a very easily frightened child. I was like definitely the kind of kid that you could never ever take to see a horror movie or else they'd be crying forever. So I don't know. Maybe I can channel some of that inner child and scare him straight into doing... I don't know, like this report that I've been putting off for a couple of months. To be fair, the report's deadline isn't until like January or something, but at the same time, it's something that I'd rather get out of the way sooner rather than later. Okay, nice. I will say, for as much of a bummer and, you know, as controversial as Devilman is generally, At least I think it's controversial. I don't think I've seen some people express negative opinions on it. I am glad that I at least watched the Science Saru version of the anime. Watch the thing, and that report will get done in no time. I actually have watched Das Ding. I've seen Das Ding before, so, and it was I had a great time with it. So maybe I've lost that kind of like prey drive, or would it be predator drive? No, prey drive is what makes predators go after prey. So I guess it'd be predator drive. I don't know. I learned too much kung fu and I got too big, and now I'm not scared of monsters no more because I try to punch them. I fucked myself. I've ruined my opportunity for psychologically conditioning my brain through fear. Well, it's probably good that I didn't do that to begin with, to be honest. You know, now that I've said it like that, we can fix this by playing the Thing game. Wait, it's a third-person shooter. What's a Thing-like game? Huh. Come to think of it, I don't... Are there Thing-likes? Like, technically Among Us counts, but I don't think that's... You know, that carries with it the mechanisms of Das Ding, but not so much the ideas and emotions that the original is supposed to convey. Also, I think I just need to make this head a little bit bigger and drive it down a little bit. There we go. I mean, via Among Us. God. There has to be, but I can't recall something precisely capturing the essence. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just need to find something that'll really scare the shit out of me. I don't know. Existential fear doesn't really get the job done for me, because I feel like then I can just, like... Existential fear won't do it for me for some reason. I don't know, maybe I just need somebody to, like, chase me around with a bat for a couple of hours. Or maybe minutes, actually. I don't have that good of a cardio to be running around for hours. You know, maybe a little bit of cardio from somebody chasing me with a bat, and then I'll be good to go. That report will get done in no time. Gamer card revoked because my first thought was Prey 2017. Yeah, I've heard about Prey. I think that there were some people who were saying good things about it. Kind of fizzled out a little bit. Hi, Hachiko, how you doing? The game's about mimic-type aliens. Yeah. I recall that part. I remember reading... Okay, there's this one webcomic called Awkward Zombie that is still running to this day, which I'm pleasantly surprised... I was pleasantly surprised to find a couple of weeks back. Wait, did I do anything for the design on the bomber jacket for the vault suit? Yes, I did. There was a tiny 13 on it, but I can put something on that later. But yeah, didn't Prey get a sequel at some point? I swear it got a sequel at some point. I feel like I remember hearing that it had a sequel. That or the sequel was in the works but got cancelled. Prey got DLC, that's it. Rough. But yeah, because of the webcomic that I read about that did a comic on Prey 2017, I was under the assumption that it was like a prop hunt kind of game. Like it was basically like sci-fi prop hunt. And from what you're telling me, that vibe might have not been the correct interpretation of the source material. Oh yeah, there was also that one boomer shooter kind of game that I remember watching the Civi 11 video of. That one seemed like a pretty decent narrative work. You know, I feel like the other Prey game was held up fairly well. From what I remember, the review was mostly positive, but I haven't played the game myself, so I can't really pass value value judgment on it from a personal perspective, from a first-hand source. You can whack objects to see if they're a mimic, but that's a different tone. Simon-ish type game. Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. You know, I could dig that. Let's see. Okay. God, that is actually pretty funny, though. Imagine, okay, so imagine you're an alien, right? Imagine you're like a mimic alien from Dusting, and you have infiltrated a human spaceship in order to devour and or spread to the other humans on the ship to fulfill your directive as a species, right? What do you do? Do you just have to lock in and take your medicine if a human just starts whacking you? Like, obviously, you'd be you would be bothered by it. I still have never beaten the game. I'll never finish a Shock Lake. It is endlessly amusing to me how you find new and such succinct ways of communicating concepts that I completely understand at a glance. Because you know what, hearing that and given my understanding of Prey 2017, I'm like, damn, that is a shock like, huh? That thing is a shock like as hell. I have the System Shock remake downloaded on my computer. I should play that at some point. God. Could you imagine how annoying copyright would be if you were able to legally claim the game that did it first as the genre-defining name? Prey 7 2017 has an OST by Mick Gordon, modern Doom fella. Yeah, didn't Mick Gordon also work on a couple of the tracks for Killer Instinct? I get recommended one that has this boxer character on it on YouTube all the time. It's a really good one. You do love to see it. Okay, and then we're gonna have this. What an insane portfolio to have! You like that, like having a game called Doom in your portfolio, and also having a game called Killer Instinct on your portfolio makes you, I think, just by principle, one of the most hardcore people on Earth. Right? Like, I feel like you deserve some kind of plaque, or at least a certificate for being that guy. There we go. All right. So I gave her cowboy boots, I think, in one of the thumbnails. The fun part about making thumbnails is that you can create a very vivid image and communicate a fun kind of... Oh, yeah, I think I also gave her like a holster across her chest, but I don't think that's going to work right here. But yeah, it's a very rewarding experience because you can create like it's basically a chance to create something that you can record your progress in a game with, or I don't know. It is a type of advertising technically, but for me, it's also just a chance to draw something that I think will be fun to draw. It's gotten more fun since I've started relying on using unsplash pictures for the backgrounds. There we go. I should probably narrow down this part a little bit. Honestly, as much as the modern Doom series has brought us, I do feel like they ripped and teared too close to the sun with a lot of the stuff that they did. I don't know how else to put it. I feel like the lore for Doom became like the kind of thing that happens in Destiny 2, where there is like a rich thing behind it, but I feel like it's not congruous with the actual gameplay aspect of it. I don't. It is a very bizarre thought for me to have, because normally I'm the kind of guy who says that, you know, art is anything you can get away with, but at the same time, I feel like if you're doing a series from like the 90s where your main job is to shoot demons as a space marine, I feel like it going in the direction of, actually there was like a huge ancient order of slayers that was like a multi-universal league of evil fighters. It just feels like a strange direction for it to take. But obviously it's been wildly successful, so what the hell am I saying? Like, it's not that it doesn't have to be that deep. It can be that deep, but it just feels like it's going deep in the wrong direction. How do I put this? Not necessarily deep for the sake of being deep, but more so. It felt like this was written by a guy who just really liked having science fiction space Vikings who fight evil, more so than it was that somebody who just wanted to make a congruent game world that was consistent with the rest of the branding. Got it. I do also. It is also really funny. I'm thinking back to when I was playing Doom Eternal. A couple. God, it must have been almost like more than 6 months ago. Hang on. Let me pull up my Steam right now, and try and remember when I played Doom Eternal. I had that in my Steam library for a few years. Last played November 10th, 2023. So I was wrong. It wasn't like 6 months ago. It was almost a year ago. God. But yeah, I played that in 2023, and I remember doing some grinding in FF6 with stream in the background, and when I heard Space Marine, my ears immediately perked up. Good lord of my 240k build. There's nothing wrong with like... There's nothing wrong with being invested in your specific interests. Let's see. God, I do feel like I am very much by by the grace of God a 40k tourist. I know some of the stuff vaguely from different videos I've seen scattered here and there. I also tried watching the Emperor, if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, like a long time ago. I think this was even before university. I have a passing interest in 40k, and I mostly keep up with it so I know what other people are talking about. It's been very rewarding, though, what little I have learned. I also have read one of the Caiaphas Cain books, which was a lot of fun. I really like the prose for those. That like seems strange. Emperor's text-to-speech device is pretty funny. I'm genuinely surprised how well it holds up. There were a couple of instances from it where I was like, huh, I probably would laugh harder at this if I knew the kind of internal lore behind the series. But there were other times when I'm like, damn, that's really funny. Caiaphas Cain is Guy. I love those books. My guy. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, they're really well done. I feel like they have a decent... Like, if you know at least a little bit about the background lore behind 40K, they are a great, fun little story. I remember especially, I think from the second book, I remember one of the Mechanicus dweebs was like traumatized from running into like a Necron stronghold. Spoilers, by the way. By running into a stronghold. And Caiaphas was like, well, why don't we just blow the whole thing up? We've got some fuel reserves into it, right? We can just dump some promethium in there and light it. And the Mechanicus guy is like, it's like Christmas for him. He's like, yo, really funny. Because I get it. Like, if I had been traumatized by whatever was down there, and I had a chance to literally burn it in a huge fuel explosion, I would also be quite excited. I don't know. Is Caiaphas Cain a good guide for people who find themselves failing upwards a lot? I feel like to some extent it is. Because like that guy fails upwards a lot, and he has to, and I feel like, I don't know, at least being able to keep your cool about it isn't necessarily the best coping mechanism, but it'll at least make sure you don't backslide. Caiaphas Cain literally has that one picture of Chihiro that's like, if you laugh, you go to hell, in his like field of vision at all times. More like if you refuse, you go to hell, but at the same time, similar feelings. I should probably start reading Kagurabachi at some point. I remember keeping up with some of the initial chapters, but I fell off on it really hard for some reason. He's a good mix of failing upward, genuine competence, and a crippling case of imposter syndrome. Yes. I think that's a pretty good way to describe it. I think what is endearing about him isn't that his competence feels unfounded. It's that it's that the author is able to spin like those moments of competence into him talking himself down well enough that you're like, wow, that was so cool. And he's like, oh my god, I'm so lucky, I shouldn't be alive right now. And he's like, and you just kind of like cross your arms and go like, ah, Caiaphas. Like it's a very well choreographed song and dance. Okay, there we go. Perfect. I think it's also important that there's a very rich cast of side characters. Because I do think that because it's a very episodic book series, it does a good job of having strong voices and introductions for like the sidekick characters for whatever scenario they're going on. Like from the first book, he has to deal with like a squad of soldier meatheads who end up on a mission with him, and he's super scared that they're going to shoot him dead while he's not looking. I don't remember much about like the people from the second book, but I do remember there was like at least that one Mechanicus guy. Okay, there we go. Okay, put the finger like there, and put this over here. Perfect. Ooh, but then that makes this finger a little bit too big. So we'd have to move that over here. This could work. Hang on. I gotta I gotta like look at my own hand for a second here. One of my favorite recurring bits is that when Caiaphas shaves Amberly's psyker companion, she has to mention how enormous her rack is. God. Right, I also remember that. God, it is also, that those sequences are also really fun because like, oh my god, she knows I'm a fraud. I'm so washed. I'm the turbo fumbler. I'm so cooked. Oh my god, she's beautiful. Meanwhile, I imagine that she's on the other side of the mental conversation. Like, Caiaphas looks nice today. I wonder if he's been eating well. I should probably report him for death for death and cowardice. Maybe another day. Really funny dynamic. Also, what I could do instead of making the hand smaller is I could just make the rest of V bigger. Speaking of enormous. Okay. Perfect. Wait, no, wait. Amberly had a psyker companion, and I'm getting Amberly mixed up with like her psyker companion. Now I remember, right? The psyker companion is the one who always gets weirded out by the fat guy. Dive in JPEG. Now's not the time. I'm recollecting my thoughts. You don't deserve a name as cool as Devon JPEG. Get the fuck out of here. It really is a shame whenever a bot gets a cool username. I've beaten this drum before, but it is always such a shame when that happens. But yeah, no, I remember now. She has like a psyker in her entourage, and the psyker is completely grossed out by what's his name? I forgot his name, but the Chamberlain, I guess, would be the best term. The concierge that Kane has. Now I remember. I forget details like that sometimes. Alright, what I should... Jurgen! My guy Jurgen! That's him. That's the one. Honestly, I feel like my ideal job would be kind of being like somebody's Jurgen. I don't know, I feel like I'm very good sidekick material. I don't have enough direction myself to like be the leader necessarily, but I do feel like I could be somebody's sidekick professionally. Granted, my incidence of mortality would be much higher as a sidekick, but you know, you take the good with the bad. And heck, some sidekicks make it pretty far. Just in terms of age. Wouldn't be too bad of a gig, I'll be real, right? I don't know. I feel like the hardest part of being a sidekick is finding somebody who inspires that kind of loyalty in you. Because I feel like the determining factor for a lot of this is that they are just completely for this character, and one of the main appeals of that kind of character is the fact that they are like completely loyal to their boss, basically. It's very endearing. Where did the term sidekick come from, actually? Hang on. Because come to think of it, it can't have been from Old English, right? Because kick, you never hear somebody call like a friend or a servant a kick. Hang on, sidekick. Etymology from sidekick, which in the late 19th and early 20th century was a slang term for the front side pocket of a pair of trousers, known as the pocket safest from theft. Thus, by analogy, a sidekick was a person's closest companion. Ah, that makes a lot of sense. Still, it's kind of a funny term for it. Yeah, this is my guy Pants Pocket, my bosom pal. Also, I do have a goon outfit. Hang on, don't I have a... I had a goon outfit. We designed it on stream. I remember clearly that I had like a goon-ish outfit. A goon-adjacent outfit. Yeah, I had like a newsboy cap and everything. Hang on. Maybe I can find it somewhere. It should be somewhere in here. No, this is too late on. This would have been 2024, 2023, somewhere around that time. Yeah, it would have been after the Hat in Time streams, I think. I had it somewhere around here. I know I can find it. What was it after the affiliate send-off stream? That seems like it would have been too far. Hang on. I had a goon outfit. Yeah, that is a funny thing to say, actually. So, alt, maybe? No. Hang on, I can just... Wait a minute, I'm an artist. I can just draw it right now. Hang on. So, from what I recall... Hang on. It was something like this. Definitely like the kind of newsboy cap sort of shit. On my newsboy type shit. Of course with my trademark smile. I had... It was like a sleeveless shirt. I think I had gloves on. Maybe like fingerless gloves. This is gonna look like a Paper Mario sprite. Pairing that sentence with a clip of talking about the rainforest tea? The rainforest tea? Wait, which one was that? Rainforest tea. I feel like I remember that as well, but I'm coming up blank, unfortunately. I don't remember what kind of shoes I had. Oh, that one. Yeah. You said the phrase several times. I said it like twice. Uh-oh. I hope that doesn't become a permanent part of my brand. God. Although that wouldn't be the worst thing I could have associated with me. Hashtag feminist. But yeah, it was something like this, and it was like a striped shirt too. But yeah, very kind of classic goon outfit. Although I guess in the colder months it would probably switch from a sleeveless shirt to like one of those big sailor sweaters, right? I need to find some way to make a sweater look tougher than usual, because otherwise I am just gonna straight up look like a newsboy. And I don't sell papers, I stack them. I do know that there are some sweaters that have like this clasp on the shoulder so that you can easily take them on and off, and those are usually associated with sailors. I think it might be the newsboy cap, unfortunately. But the thing is, I don't know what other kind of hat I could wear that could communicate the idea of a goon, the concept of gooning, as effectively. Me and my thick, dark cable knit torn up from help the boss. From helping the boss. Yeah. God, everybody thinks that I'm some kind of Kurt Cobain cosplayer, but it's like, no, I keep getting into gunfights with those persons that I pledged my life to. This just happens to be what the sweater that I wore to it. One thing about Kurt Cobain is that he had that shit on frequently. Like the red and black striped sweater with the jeans fit is very, very iconic to me. Okay, there we go. Dude had fits for days. True. Okay, there we go. Perfect. That's one thing about musicians from that era. I'm older than he was, and I am uncomfortable about that. I mean, everybody gets to a point where they're past that age. I feel like most people in modern society don't have to worry about making it past 27, lest something bad happens. Outside of very specific circumstances. But yeah, I mean, on the other, it is uncomfortable to think about, I guess, because, you know, in a lot of cases, when you hear about artists that made it when they were young, or when somebody who has done a lot during a short period of time in their life, during a very brief time in their life, it is easy to feel like maybe you're lagging behind or that you're being left behind. But on the other hand, you also have you still have your own open road to forge ahead of you. You've still got time. Time is like the thing you have the most of in a lot of cases. Outside of a few rare circumstances. Wait, actually, hang on. Let me check something real quick. I need to find something for reference. Birthday, 17th June. Debut date, 2019. Retirement date, 2021. Okay, I've been officially streaming longer as Pabs than Kiryu Coco did as Kiryu Coco, which makes me uncomfortable. Okay, now I understand. I understand what you mean much more clearly now. Never mind. It's weird to think about. Technically she hasn't stopped streaming, but like at the same time, she did accomplish a lot during the time that she was active. Well, it's also true that luck has a lot to do with it. It's one of the most defining factors. Luck, creating opportunities for opportunities and being able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented. Well, maybe you're not strictly thinking about it in terms of success or accomplishments, though. That's probably not a healthy way to think about it in general, come to think of it. It's fucking killing me that a couple of the phrases that I've picked up that kind of define my philosophy and my approach to a lot of what I do as an artist come from shitposts. Like I used that phrase earlier, art is anything you can get away with. That was something that I saw on printed on a button on some random Tumblr post. And I was like, well, I'm immediately incorporating that into my belief system. It's more so I finally realized how young that really was. Yeah. God. That's true, come to think of it. I hadn't considered it in that way, but yeah, now that you've clarified it, I understand what you mean. Okay, and then over here, perfect. God, I completely freehanded dog meat, and I think that's the best way to do it. And this dog needs to look like a Muppet. There we go. Muppet meat. Muppet meat feels like it would be... It's almost like Muppet meat sounds like a weird term of endearment. Like, I feel like I would, like, be walking in a supermarket, and, like, some lady would go up to her partner, and be like, oh, Muppet meat, do you think we should get some canned pumpkin? And, like, I would turn my head, but then, like, try to avoid turning my head, because I don't want to be too judgy in public. But I would definitely be, like, rotating that phrase around in my head for a while. I mean, I guess a lot of things can be term of endearment in terms of a term of endearment as long as like you have endearment when you say it. There we go. That, or I've just been delusional from being fed on high fructose tsunderes during my most impressionable years. I never understood the hype behind tsunderes, but I've come to appreciate them in their own way as a character archetype. I feel like people who like tsunderes have like a high psychological resilience. Like I feel like they would test positively on a lot of psychological evaluations. Scrunkly ass dog. Let's see. I've long since abandoned the kind of cladistics of like tsundere, kudere, dere, and whatnot. Since I've come to realize that now all everybody wants are people who are just incredibly unhinged in their own unique, special way. Like Uma Musume proved that to me. It doesn't matter what archetype the person starts out as or how they are marketed, as long as they have something wrong with them that is endearing or quirky. It is like blood in the water. They will have a fan somewhere and somehow. I think a lot of what that has to do is that flaws are very much human. I used the phrase high fructose corn syrup tsundere earlier. I do think that is because like they had very few flaws outside of what could be reasonably termed as anger issues and difficulty with interpersonal relationships. They didn't, but that was like an issue, but it wasn't something that was necessarily. How do I put it? When I say that there's something wrong with someone, I don't mean it as in like they have a imperfection or a flaw necessarily. I guess I am more referring to like a specific quirk or a eccentricity or idiosyncrasy that is unique to them. I think that's what the people crave nowadays. But I've been wrong before. I'm not completely ready to sell the farm on that ethos just yet. Actually, Ian, this is kind of like an all Muppet party except for V, because Ian also looks a little bit like a Muppet. The way I'm gonna draw him. Somebody posted an animation of like an Ian source filmmaker model a couple days back in V's server. Let me see if I can actually pop that open. It shouldn't be too far back in one of the channels. There it is. It threw me off really badly because I've been drawing Ian as like a fairly chubby guy, because in the whatchamacallit, in the game description it described him as like a stout man. But this guy's like a hunky kind of dude. He still has like that very distinctive 5 o'clock shadow that I've also been giving our Ian, but our Ian has like a soul patch too. Our Ian is in dire straits, quite frankly. But yeah, it was also this way with a card that I saw him on the. Oh yeah, credit to what Asian fanboy for the animation that I just zoomed in on. Had to really like focus on what that username was. I'm like, am I reading this right? There we go. But yeah, I do think that people have finally started to crave a little bit more nuance from their characters. But I do think we are still at the phase where like too much nuance is still difficult for a lot of people to grasp. It's rough out here for writers who actually want to say something. Granted, I can't exactly say that I have that issue because I don't have much to say with my writing. What little of it I produce, a lot of it is for my own amusement. Let's see. But there are some people who have a lot of ambition and creativity as writers, and I do think they struggle with people who are not engaging with the work in a constructive manner. But I guess that's always been a risk. Kind of imagining now a tabletop game where you are like the one human in a cast of Muppet movie in the cast of like a Muppet movie. Let's see. That might actually be interesting. I don't know. Are there tabletop games where it's like asymmetrical multiplayer, but are there asymmetrical multiplayer tabletop games? Raph would probably know about this, or Pearl probably would too. I'd have to ask either of them. Because I feel like if you are in that situation, I feel like it makes sense to make the Muppet contingent like the one side of the team, and then like the human contingent like just a separate part of the team. I don't know. I feel like that'd be difficult to manage to some extent because you do have to manage just due to the social structure of a tabletop gaming group. It's much more difficult. It's easier to sell one person is controlling all of the enemies in this game to this group of people is controlling one group. This person is controlling like another single unit. I feel like that's better suited for computer gaming. But yeah, the good news is that since I have this Friday off, even if I don't finish a thumbnail today, it should still be fine. Can just put a couple hours into it on the morning of. Oh yeah, has anybody heard anything about a game called Mycopunk? I've made plans to play it with a friend of mine pretty soon, and I was wondering if anybody had thoughts on it. Apparently, it is still in early access, so I don't know if anybody has any insights into it. I've low-key been spoiling myself on home cooked foods recently because I bought on Saturday, I believe. It might have been Sunday, actually. No, this was Saturday? Thursday? No, this was probably Saturday. Last Saturday, I went to a hardware store, and when I usually go to that hardware store, I always take an opportunity. First time I've been hearing about it, TBH? Okay. Whenever I pass by this hardware store, I grab myself a bag of bagels from a nearby bakery that makes really good bagels. They also make some baller cookies too, but I usually I at least try to get myself some bagels. I usually go for like the cinnamon sugar bagels that they have there, but this time around they were like, yeah, no, sorry, we were out. So I'm like, what do you have? Well, we have these poppy seed bagels. I'm like, yeah, right, sure, why not? I came here for bagels. I'll walk away with bagels. Let's do this thing. These poppy seed bagels were kind of a game changer just in terms of like the bread in anything that I made. So I was like, okay, I'll roast my chicken, I'll cook my vegetables, I'll brine the chicken before roasting it. It's gonna be great. And you know what? I have these poppy seed bagels. Might as well try the chicken with it. You know, I make myself a sandwich, and it is delicious. It is filling. The roasted vegetables have a nice little contrast with the chicken. Wonderful stuff all around. But see, now I've kind of spoiled myself on future home-cooked dinner experiences, I feel. Like, it has been a little bit of a game changer having that available. I love eating rice. I love eating rice a lot. But it is somewhat of a hassle to have like a decent stock of rice on standby, because whenever you want to make more, you have to wash the pot, you have to clean the pot, you have to cook the rice again. It is a little bit of a hassle. I mean, rice is delicious, so it's worth it, right? I say it As Rice Beast has like a huge gun pointed at my head with a sign that says "Maintain the brand." Rice is delicious, but it's nice to have a change of pace every once in a while. Oh, yeah, I also got to try challah for the first time, which is pretty good as a bread. Okay, then over here, and perfect. Also, I need to make Ian's head slightly smaller. Actually, I need to make Ian, period, slightly smaller. Mostly the head, though. Okay, and there we go. Perfect. Okay. And yeah, we can kind of just... I guess I would have to add the fingerless gloves, huh? That's fine. That's super easy. Okay. Don't have to think too hard about the hand. I feel like I can probably get away with a lot since it's going to be pretty far away in terms of perspective. I think the hand might also need to be smaller. But yeah, my two now like most legendary sandwiches that I've made for myself are one this. Okay, so I bought myself some microgreens one time, and I put them into a sandwich with some chicken strips, a small omelet, and I just spread some mayo on the bread. And I feel like if I need to impress somebody with a breakfast sandwich, that's going to be the one. Like if I was in a situation where it was like do or die, fumble or glory kind of situation, and I had to make somebody a sandwich, that would probably be the one. But this chicken poppy seed one would probably be a close second. I need to start getting back into marinating my meats more. I feel like one of my issues is that I have problems controlling the moisture in the meat. Yeah, no, microgreens are awesome because it's so strange. They kind of hit the nail on the head when they were naming those things because they sure as hell do taste like greens that are micro. Like they just taste like the color green, but in a pleasant way. They have a very vegetative. Vegetative? No, vegetative isn't the right word. But they have like a very strong vegetable taste without being overwhelming. It's a nice bitterness to contrast a lot of the other stuff. Cuts through fat pretty well, so it goes well with the chicken strips. I'll slap some chipotle mayo on that tendy sandwich personally, but normal mayo is good too. I don't know. I don't use a whole lot of mayo. I haven't considered the vegetal. That's a word? Okay, nice, cool. That let's go with that then. Yeah, it has a nice vegetal taste. Vegetal. What what does the scouter say about his power level? Okay, there we go. of pants did I give this guy? Just blue jeans? Yeah, blue jeans and cowboy boots. It's been a pretty couple busy weeks for me art-wise, surprisingly. I feel like I've been working really hard on art, but a lot of it is stuff that I either use for thumbnails or something, so I feel like I haven't had enough to post regularly. But I do know that's like the algorithm demons talking. Listen, if you ever start to like feel to yourself, you know what, I haven't really been posting enough. I really should do something to fix that. That is the devil talking. You are being spoken to by the great enemy, and you need to ignore that call at all costs. I have previously discussed the idea of like the poster's temperament, and again, this is I'm tying this to religious themes for comedic value rather than like an actual belief system. But my God, you need to stop posting sometimes. You need to avoid being or feeling the pressure to post about everything. You have to display some temperance. You have to sheath your sword sometimes. Oh lordy. Oh yeah, speaking of posting, I played a very cute little. So a run of this takes like barely 15 minutes. There was apparently a live 2D game jam being hosted on itch.io, and Mocha, who I follow, who is allied to the channel. I feel like I should probably try and talk to Mocha at some point. I feel like Mocha is a very cool person and has a lot of fingers in game dev pies, and I would like to talk about that with Mocha at some point. Also, I should probably figure out Mocha's pronouns at some point, but that's Mocha's business. I don't know. I feel like game development is such an interesting field. Because I feel like the human element is a very difficult thing to both predict and to manage. You know, your human connections, even interpersonally, let alone in an organizational capacity, are extremely difficult to manage. And I feel like game development in a lot of ways is trying to preempt the ways that somebody will interact with something that you create, and being prepared for those interactions, or creating a infrastructure? No. A structure? No. But creating something to respond to the ways that they are intending to interact. I don't know. I feel like it requires a lot of sympathy and foresight. And of course, trial and error. But that's true of a lot of things. Here we go. Also, I do just have inherent respect for anybody who can handle coding at any capacity. That shit is frightening. I don't care for it. I don't care for that manner of sorcery myself. Actually, come to think of it, I'm not much of a sorcery guy in general. A lot of the miracles that I pull off are either physical or related to luck. I guess more than anything, I put my faith in science. Maybe a little bit too much, because not necessarily in the sense that I don't believe anything that hasn't been proven scientifically, but more so in the sense that sometimes you can't wait for science to define the best approach to something. I sure do love casting spells. Yeah, we all have our own approach, I feel. Some people love spell slinging and summoning shit, and also I guess that is mostly it. Spell casting and summoning stuff. Maybe conjuration. I mean, conjuration and summoning. What is? I guess you use conjuration to summon things. So I guess it's not really that far off in terms of definitions. Helmets are very difficult for me to draw. Yeah, this one needs to be slightly smaller. There we go. Gotta get the slope just right. I don't know. I do wonder if there is like a difference in personality types between people who want to pursue sorcery more and who want to pursue physical stuff more. I imagine there's also people who are in between where they want to do a little bit of both. I don't know. I don't think we need to create another dichotomy in this world, though. Let's see. Yeah, no, that seems about right. Okay, and then we need to add the 2 eye holes. Perfect. Nice, okay. I should probably decrease the line size on the kind of filter on the gas mask here. Something else that I need to get to work on, just in terms of, oh yeah, I was talking about about like stuff that science can and cannot prove, or more like it hasn't been able to be isolated just yet. I was looking at the Wikipedia article for like strength training and physical training, and there's some good stuff in there because it talks a little bit about the different components that go into physical exercise, like tempo, frequency, the actual speed at which you do the exercise, the kinds of exercise you can do, how often you should do it, etc. It goes into a little bit about the research on those topics, and I had some interesting finds on there. So, for example, they found that exercising a muscle group twice in 1 week was, I mean, obviously it was more effective than exercising it only once a week. But they found that in trying to do it 3 times a week instead of 2 didn't have like conclusive results or something. Which might be owed to the fact that you need to give those muscle groups more time in between sets, because if you're doing more sets per week, you're giving them less time to rest. And also about like the details about overtraining, how that can occur. It's interesting stuff. I don't know. Even if it's going to take a Herculean effort for me to actually start an exercise plan of any kind, I like having this knowledge because it feels like I'm more prepared for when I do it. I like to know, especially if it's something that I am heading into with the goal of gaining something. You know, if it's like something that I'm just here to experience, I'm fine not knowing a whole lot. But if I'm trying to gain something, I do try to have as much information on my side about what like the optimal methods are. And there are some cool stuff in there. So, like for example, in terms of breathing, you know how everybody says, "Okay, breathe in when you lift, like breathe in when you lower the weight, and then breathe out, or like exhale sharply when you lift it." that can help in terms of just using that breath out contraction to lift more. But in terms of gains, it doesn't really matter whether you breathe in when you lift or breathe out when you lift. Both of them are as effective, except for when you're doing hardcore weightlifting, in which case there is something you can do called the Valsalva maneuver, where you actually hold your breath while you're lifting so that the air pressure in your cavity can kind of reinforce the structure of your torso when you lift. I didn't know that had a name. The Valsalva maneuver sounds like a really cool name for just like a simple breathing trick. But yeah, it's things like that that are interesting to find out as well. Also, they found that in that for warming up, it can help prevent injuries for lower body exercises, but it doesn't do much for upper body exercises. However, it does help a lot with 1 rep maximums. If you're trying to like go for a PB or something, it's actually really good to do a warm up with the specific form and flex that you're trying to do, because that way you've kind of activated, you've pumped up a little bit the muscles that are good. That's how I do it, TBH. Yeah, breathe in and then like breathe in when you're lowering it, and then breathe out when you. Whenever my friend takes me to the gym, I love lifting heavy. There is something very satisfying about doing your 1 rep maximum. Apparently, that's good for like actually building strength too. So 80 to 100% of your 1 rep maximum is at like 1 to 5 repetitions is good for building strength. If you want hypertrophy, apparently you can maximize that through sets to failure. Hang on, I wrote this down. Yeah, 30% of anything more than 30% of 1 rep maximum is viable for hypertrophy, but one recommended approach to it was 8 to 12 reps of 60 to 80% of 1 rep maximum. But yeah, I don't know. There's something really cool about just getting to lift something really friggin' heavy. Like, it helps you appreciate that, you know, you have a working body, I guess is my way of thinking about it. Like, like whenever I help somebody lift something heavy and I finish it, I'm like, yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy for real. Okay, there we go. Do you go to the gym often then, Michelle? Or generally just when your friend takes you? I honestly have such a hard time gauging people's levels of physical fitness, because I assume that most people live like me and are just like slugs outside of a few very specific situations. But it's true that some people take very good care of their bodies, which is an admirable thing, of course. Okay, I see where I went wrong here. I know it's easier to get higher weights on machines, but still maxing out the leg press machine for reps felt so cool. Haven't gone recently. My friend has a gym membership and she hasn't taken me in a while. I see. God, yeah, no. Squat machines are so cool because I have decently strong legs, so I was able to get a pretty high score with them. It felt very satisfying. Or back when I did rowing machine stuff, my apartment complex has a small gym on the top floor, and sometimes I use it, and they have a rowing machine, and I used to just crank that thing up to maximum and then just go for like 45 minutes, and it didn't feel too rewarding, but I did feel good doing it, which I guess is kind of the idea of what rewarding is, I guess. But it's a slightly different feeling. I do a lot of calisthenics, honestly. That's how I went from around 220 to 250 down to 170. Woof. You've been working hard. That's a pretty drastic change. Well, yeah, that diet. Yeah, no, you're not gonna go from 250 to 170 through just working out unless you're working out like unless you're like Yujiro Hanma. Unless you're like doing Baki character shit. I think that was literally what happened during like the first great fight with the Yasha ape or something. Is that Baki just ended up trying to hyperbulk with Andre the Giant's food. God, Baki the Grappler is such a good ass comic. But yeah, no, that is a kind of change that requires a calorie deficit. I'm grateful that I seem to maintain like a fairly consistent body type and weight because I feel like I've gained not necessarily more confidence, but more happiness, more satisfaction with like my body type because I have been for a long time the fat kid. But I don't know. People talk about being fat pretty positively, and I feel like that's been really good for my self-image. Like everybody is talking about BBWs and bears, and I'm not feeling the love a little bit. I don't apply to either of those categories, but I don't think. But you know, I'm feeling the love by extension. How do I... Hang on. Okay, what I could do is I could extend a bit of the cloak here. Okay, how curvy should I make Tycho? Because like I feel like it's easier to communicate like, yeah, he's leaning over if I define his butt more. But I am worried that it's going to lead to caked up Tycho allegations. Which would be pretty funny, but it's not exactly what I'm trying to capture here. I really should have found a... Hang on. Is it too late to find a photo reference for this? Hang on. Person, trench coat, crouching. Okay. Not really finding any in the pose that I'm looking for. Or leaning down, maybe? Person, trench coat, leaning. What do we got? Look at this. My God, the Inspector Gadget fit in big 2025. I do appreciate it. I think I like it a lot. I don't know. I think we gave people who like trench coats a bit too much shit back in the day. Time was you wore a tan trench coat and people couldn't stop calling you Columbo, and you wore a dark trench coat and people couldn't stop calling you Neo. What in the... Oh. Go-Go Gadget swag. Go-Go Gadget funk at it. God. Really funny doing this. You don't see people stack themselves up in a trench coat as much as you used to. Feels like you used to see that all the time. Okay, this one won't be as effective of a disguise, but it is a very sweet picture. But yeah, no, maybe I should, hang on, maybe just person crouching. or person leaning down. Okay, perfect. I need this, but from the other side of the camera. The edgelord connotations to the trench coat did some real damage to the coat. It's been difficult to recover. I'm gonna be real. I'm not sure we have recovered just yet. Ooh, wait. Hang on. Hands behind the back. That might be it. I feel like that works pretty well as well with Tycho's like status as like the smartest one in the group. Or I don't know. I think it's the gas mask that makes Tycho feel like he has a more pensive nature compared to the other two members of the team. I feel like because you can't see his face, you assume that he's always plotting some shit. Okay, and then cross this over here. Here's what let's do. Gonna put this a little bit closer over here. Perfect. Yes. God. I remember one time I bought a pair of tan cocky pants, right? But the problem is that it turns out that the skin tone, the tone of those pants is like shockingly close to my human flesh skin tone. So whenever I walked outside, it looked a little bit like I was well, it looked a lot like I wasn't wearing any pants when I walked around with those. So I ultimately I did have to retire them from the wardrobe. Okay, maybe, and we can extend the thing here. Perfect. But yeah, the thing is that trench coats really are kind of like the perfect edgelord accoutrement because of the fact that they first of all if you get a black trench coat, it's like an all black outfit in one go, so it's already very easy to do that. But then I also think it also has like that mysterious vibe from, you know, the fact that it's usually connected with mystery novels and detectives. This is why it's compelling in so many ways, but it's also why it's compelling to edgelords, which is why it's a bit of a harder sell for anybody else. I don't know, you do kind of just need to look like the sweetest, most harmless person on earth in order to be able to wear a trench coat nowadays. Although I guess that is true for a lot of clothing items, so I feel I feel like people are less harsh for what you wear sometimes when you have, you know, it's universal. It is a little bit universal that people are less harsh towards what you wear if you have a specific body type. But at the same time, like if you saw trench coat is peak detective noir. Yep. Like again, Columbo, huge Atlas-like effort in establishing this identity for it. I don't know. Was Columbo like the one who defined the trench coat detective thing? Hang on. Trench coat detective, not trope, or maybe just trench coat detective. Okay. Here we go. This could be good. The coat has become the shorthand for the detective, not only telling you a lot about the cop wearing it, but about the era they're wearing it in. So, in a not at all blatant ripoff of the BBC's History of a World in 100 Objects, let's chart the TV detectives beat across our screens by looking at their most iconic outerwear. Dragnet and beyond. The first TV detectives were poured from the same tobacco-stained mold of pulp PIs, leading to the creation of the likes of Peter Gunn, Martin Kane, Dragnet's Joe Friday, and other investigators who might crease a smile of nostalgia on your granddad's face. No-nonsense slabs of man concrete who existed on a diet of red meat, cigarettes, and resentment. Insane sentence. Fitting to their personalities, they wore no-nonsense clothing. Suits, hats, and a now cliché trench coat. Okay. Sure, the Flasher briefly tried to co-opt it in the 70s, but not even frantically waggling genitals can detract from the iconic status of the trench, and to this day it remains the cliché clothing for many a copper. Okay. Peter Falk's Columbo was a shambling pantomime horse concealing a Sherlock in both the front and the rear. Pardon me? Okay. Detectives of the Dragnet era had a stony confidence about them that intimidated suspects, but Columbo made himself look like... Okay, but this isn't actually where where the thing came from. Oh, hey, there's Inspector Gadget. Okay, So maybe I'm not asking the right question. So, where did detective trench coats come from? Maybe Wikipedia will have an answer. No. I'm looking at detective in the Wikipedia page for trench coat, and there's nothing there for me. Shunvogue.com? Is that a place? Mystery, determination, protection from the elements, concealed storage, discretion. Symbol of profession. Okay, but it doesn't actually talk about where or who was the one who kind of codified this particular fashion choice. Let's see. Big problem with the trench coat is back then that it was a luxury item granted only to British officers, so it made them stick out like a sore thumb. Okay. Huh. It doesn't seem like there is a specific source for it. The trench coat does have a sense of world weariness, like it's seen all kinds of things. This includes Dick Tracy and Humphrey Bogart's Sam Spade in the 1941 Maltese Falcon. Huh. It can be assumed that the first trench coat... Okay, no, that's talking about the Flashers. We gotta move on. Before its inevitable descent, I kind of resent that notion, the 1980s and 1990s saw one last big search for the trench coat becoming a visual element in the realm of comic books, taking on all the cool visual aesthetics of a cape without actually being a cape. Okay, interesting. Since it was only worn by officers, it also came to represent a certain level of stature, particularly in the UK, where only the upper class served in the higher ranks. So there isn't a single source that made this a thing. It's not like the leather jacket where it was. I think it was Marlon Brando who kind of defined the idea of like the leather jacket wearing rebel. Or at least was the most famous example of it on the big screen. That's funny to think about. We have reasons for certain things, but not for others. I remember looking up why wrestling trophies came in the form of belts, and it wasn't really a defined thing. People just did it for a long time, and that's just kind of how it's been. One suggestion was that it was based on an old Celtic tradition where they had like these strips of cloth that were very colorful, and the strips kind of like symbolized each champion. So like when the guy won, he would basically get the other people's strips of cloth, and that would become the belt. But that was just one theory. The world is pretty broad and its history is long, so there's any number of reasons why it could have come to be this way. It's a little frustrating, but that's also not a bad thing. Okay. We'll just lightly trace this part here. And so that way... Perfect. And we can do something similar for this section here. And here. For this one we can... Actually, no, I should probably include the slab of stone. I was going to say we can probably exclude the slab of stone up here and just draw it directly like down here, the line, so the dog meat has a little bit more space. But maybe not. I don't know if that's a good idea. And then we can also do something similar for Ian back here. I've always been very curious about where the specific signifiers for certain careers came from. For example, why does a doctor have a white lab coat? Or, you know, why do scientists have a white lab coat? One theory that I heard was that it was so that they could, like, hold chemicals up to the lab coat and be like, yeah, okay, this is like a purplish chemical. Looks good to me. Or, you know, yell at everybody in the building to run because they'd accidentally made, like, I don't know, synthetic plutonium or some shit. But yeah, I'm very much obsessed with the idea of symbols and what certain clothing or items can mean or signify. Mostly because I do have an interest in character design and being able to exploit those signifiers of specific things. You know, for example, the fact that the trench coat is associated with detectives, but also during the time it was first deployed, it was also associated with the nobility and the upper class, since only they could get the kind of ranks where they would be issued a trench coat. The problem is most people don't know that. So you kind of have to struggle sometimes between the readability of what you create and also the signifiers that you include in it and how you include those. The one thing that pisses me off the most is when somebody has like specific signifiers in their design and like are like, oh no, but those are like benign, and it's like, no, dude, if you'd asked anybody else, they could have told you that this was a problem. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the times in those cases, they were designed that didn't see really any external input, and it's really easy to get lost up your own behind on those kinds of on those designs. But yeah, there are some people who have made some very, very poor design choices. And we can laugh about it, but at the end of the day, they probably don't feel too good about themselves. But as always, it is what it is. Okay. Merge, merge, merge. Connect vector lines. Here we go. God. I remember a long time ago, me and Raph were looking up Dick Tracy villains because we were fascinated by some of the features that some of these guys had. Like, hang on. Like, I want to show you what some of these guys' heads looked like. Because, like, obviously Dick Tracy had a pretty strong jawline, but, like, they were doing some shit with latex masks for some of these guys. Like, look at the guy on the far left. I do wonder if there are, like, drawings of them anywhere around here. I don't think there are. Maybe instead of antagonists, villains. Oh, yeah, here we go. Look, like, look at this guy! Like, this is peak character design. I don't care what anybody says. Flat top, mumbles, the brow, shaky, prune face, Mrs. Prune Face, influence, which is I don't know. Influence is kind of an awesome name for a villain. All right. The little face is killing me though. Like, man, bro built like a pug up top. Jupiter, your way with words never fails to amaze me. Yeah, no, that dude is built. That dude looks like he's got an entire French bulldog all up on his on the upper region of his face. Bro has a raisin for a T-zone. Okay. But yeah, these are such cool character designs, though. We laugh, but these are very iconic looking designs. I look like I'm carrying too much tension on my shoulders. I need to like shrink myself down a little. Here we go. I've been obsessed with the opening theme to this 1986 version of a TV show based on Journey to the West. Because it's a very bombastic tune that feels like very motivational. But but the funniest part is that the actual lyrics to it are basically over and over the main characters repeating, "Wow, we have to fight so many demons today again. Why do we keep running into these friggin' things?" This time I don't need to be so strategic with my little radio bubble, because this time I don't need to cover up a significant portion of a paladin's armor. Blessed be. Here we go. Speaking of Blessed Be, how many more episodes does Gozuger have? I haven't been keeping up with it, but I am wondering when we're gonna see the eventual true end to Superhero Sunday. I wonder how much time we've got left on that sucker. I'm guessing we don't have too much now, too much longer. Although I do appreciate that Kamen Rider Sets is now available for viewing on YouTube just whenever you want. I'm a big advocate for that kind of thing. Let's see. Perfect. Oh yeah, we're looking good. Okay. Let's do this. So let's turn off this layer, and then we can add a bottom layer. Why not make it the color of this? Okay, are we missing any parts to it? We've got some parts that are overcooked here. But besides that, we should be pretty much good to move on to the coloring stage. You know, when we do that, I think I've done enough for today. I think this is pretty good progress in time for Friday. From here, it'll mostly be coloring and rendering, and that shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, I've had a lovely time. Thank you all for coming by. I really appreciate it. Is anybody streaming today? Oh, Folksy is streaming. Let's go say hi to Folksy then. Alright, thanks to everybody who stopped by the stream. I really appreciate it. I'll be back. I'll be on V's channel on Friday, and that's going to be the only other stream this week. Take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Talk to you later. Bye.